Hi guys, I'm Kristen. Welcome back to my channel. Today I'm going to be doing the mid-year book freak out tag. I know there are a few different variations or versions of this tag out there, so I got my list from Angela from the channel Literature Science Alliance, and I will link both her channel and the channel that she got her list from down below if you're curious. So we'll jump into the tag. The first question is the best book you've read in 2021, and if best means favorite, I have to go with The Mask of Mirrors by M.A. Carrick. This book just got me so excited about the book, what was happening, and reading in general. I finished this book being so elated and excited about the experience that I had just had and looking forward to the next book. I wanted to reread this book immediately after putting it down. I have done a full review, so you can check that out if you're interested to hear more specifics, but it is sort of a con artist story with politics, high fancy ballroom, slums, a vigilante, and I absolutely loved it. The next question in the list is the best sequel you've read in 2021, and without a doubt this has to be Flamefall by Rosaria Munda. This is the second book in the Aurelian cycle and the sequel to Fireborn. This book was everything that I needed it to be. It completely kept the same tone from the first book, which is a little bit on the sadder, heartbreaking side with some action and with lots of politics, and it went to places that I wasn't necessarily expecting, but not in a bad way. It seemed like the natural next progression without me being able to guess everything that was going to happen. The third question on this list is a new release that you haven't read yet but wanted to. That was Cast in Firelight by Dana Swift. This is a young adult fantasy book. This one caught my eye because it has one of sort of my bookish buzzwords, and that is an arranged marriage or a political marriage. I won't read the whole synopsis, but it wraps up with this kind of cute paragraph that makes me think there's a certain element to the relationship that I'm really going to enjoy. So it winds up by saying, now this land's fate is in the hands of rivals, fiancés, partners, whatever they are, it's complicated and bound for greatness or destruction. So I think it sounds really fun. The fourth question on the list is the most anticipated release for the second half of the year, and I don't know if I can limit this down to just one, so I'm gonna break the rules a little bit here and go with a couple. One of which is definitely the sequel to The Mask of Mirrors, my favorite book so far, and that is called The Liar's Knot, which is coming out in December of this year. There's two in July that I'm really looking forward to, both YA. One is Wings of Shadow, the third and final book in the Crown of Feathers trilogy by Nikki Palpretto, and the other one is Six Crimson Cranes by Elizabeth Lim. It is a retelling of the Six Swan Brothers story, which is one of my favorite, and I'm really looking forward to this. And I'm going to squeeze one more in there because I think it's actually a really unpopular opinion, and that is I'm really looking forward to The Last Graduate, the sequel in Naomi Novik's The Scholomance series. So I know that there was a lot of discourse around the first book, A Deadly Education. I actually really loved it. The fifth question on this list is the biggest disappointment of the year, and honestly, it's gotta be Crown of Gilded Bones for me. I had read the first two books. This is the third book in the From Blood and Ash series. I thought were just so much fun. I completely binge read both of those books. They weren't the best thing I've ever read, but they were angsty and smutty and with great tension. So I was so looking forward to this book. It just kind of lost all of the fun, new, exciting drama of the first two books. There's this, I guess, running joke that the main character likes to ask questions. The first two times I did it in the second book, it was like, ha ha ha, that's funny. And it's like her world is completely changed in the matter of a month or two, maybe. Every time she has a question, or there's life-shattering new information that happens, and she's like, I have a question. And he's like, oh, of course you do. Who could have known? And you're like, oh my God, of course she has questions. But also, why do we have to keep doing this exact same joke over and over again? There was a lot of really silly, kind of juvenile jokes about sex and intimacy and sexual positions. Anyway, this book was such a disappointment. It was way too long. Same conversation over and over and over and over again. Same jokes. The sexual tension was completely gone. And then she just ends all of these books with a huge cliffhanger, so you feel really sucked into reading the next book. Question number 6 is the biggest surprise of the year so far, and I think, again, I kind of have to. I think I'm gonna go with The Girl in the Tower, the second book in the Bear and the Nightingale series. The Winter Night trilogy, the first book of which is Bear and the Nightingale. I actually bought the first book because I was certain that I was going to love it. It was just maybe not as amazing and like a new favorite as I had expected it was going to be. And that's because the first book is a lot of setup for the rest of the series. And so then I guess I was going in with a more measured expectations into the second book, The Girl in the Tower. Loved it. Loved it, loved it, loved it. It was everything that I wanted that series to be. I really like where she went in that book. I liked her anger. I liked that she doesn't feel pressured to just go along with the expectations of her in this time period. I like that she tries to do her own thing. I loved the relationship between her and her horse companion Solveig. I just loved everything about this, and it completely surprised me because I had such a moderate experience with the first book. Question number 7 is a new favorite author to you or a debut author, and I think for this one I have to go with Emily Henry, a contemporary romance writer that I discovered this year. I did include her in my video to auto read authors. Beach read just really caught me off guard as in how much I loved it. It's like she is writing romance books, but in a way that's saying like life isn't actually like romance books, and so here's what romance and relationships are really like. And I like that level of realness. Beach read, I think, had the most success in balancing stuff's not perfect in life, relationships aren't perfect, getting together isn't perfect, but also still like great sexual tension and steamy scenes and like rooting for the people to get together and all of that. I think she's probably the author that stands out in my mind, that I have started to read her books this year so far and will absolutely continue to do so. And 6 months ago, I did not think that I would be giving you a contemporary romance author name there. So I think that says something. Newest fictional crush. If I had to pick someone, I would maybe say Gus from Beach Read, just because it was well written. I think he would be a good partner. That's it. It's like not only was there great steam and like he's clearly attractive, but not in like an impossible sort of way, but I think that he would be a good partner. He was like very aware of his like emotional hang-ups and that he had problems and was going to counseling. Like I was like, ooh, yeah, Gus. Question number 9 is newest favorite character. If I had to go, there's definitely some people like honorable mentions in the books that I really loved this year, especially Kenneth. Like Kenneth is maybe like the most honorable, like the highest honorable mention, because I think he's such an interesting character. But if I was going to go with new favorite character, exclusive of the setting in the book that they're in, I probably would say Prince Kiem from Winter's Orbit by Everina Maxwell. He is someone who is very self-deprecating, but he's also someone who's so charismatic and he's so good with people. He always knows the right thing to say. He's someone who makes really great connections with other people. Like he doesn't do everything perfect in the book. He doesn't go about the relationship stuff absolutely the best, but I just was so charmed by him and so in love with him as a person or like as a character, more so because he couldn't see all of the amazing things about him. So like he's definitely stuck with me, one of my new favorite characters. I don't feel the need to reread that book, but I want more Prince Kiem. Okay, question number 10, a book that made you cry. I am a crier in books. The last little while, and we're talking like the last, definitely this year and into last year, I haven't been. Part of me thinks it's because I've been reading more quickly, and so I maybe don't have the same amount of processing time or like build up into those dramatic scenes. But from this year so far, the one book that I think I got very close to crying, if not like I was like, you know, blinking away tears, slightly misty-eyed, was actually The Kiss Quotient by Helen Huang. Everyone talks about this book as like this amazing romance. It's so steamy. The relationship is so amazing. And yes, to all of those things. It was so emotional, and not from the not from the relationship aspect. Her experience of wanting to connect with people, wanting to experience sexual things, wanting to just have more physical touch and connection. The way that that experience was related, I thought was so emotional and perfect. It's actually pretty close to the beginning when she's first hired this escort. It's like a reverse Pretty Woman situation where Stella, who is on the autistic spectrum, decides that she needs more sexual experiences to like get better or practice for when she wants to have a serious relationship, and so she hires an escort. And there's this scene when she's in this hotel room and I was falling apart. Question number 11 is a book that made you happy. Okay, this brings me to a conversation that I don't really want to get super into here and now because it's also like I'm not 100% decided, but it brings me to the topic of sort of canceled authors and how I, as someone with, albeit an extremely small platform, want to approach this. I'm not on Twitter. I don't keep up with the drama. I don't follow the lives of authors, but stuff does trickle down. I do hear things occasionally, so I can't promise that I will always know everything that is happening or everything that every author has said. It's just not me. I'm just not going to keep up with that. I'm not going to go out of my way to read a book by someone if there's a problem with that author. But if I'm in the middle of the series and I'm really enjoying the series, or like I really want to know what happens, I want to be able, like I read for enjoyment, I read for fun, and so I want to be able to read that book. I mean, I'm not purchasing those books anyway. I'm not monetarily supporting the author. So what I think I'm going to do, at least my temporary solution or my temporary thought process on this, is that if there's an author that I feel like has been canceled, but I still want to read the book for whatever reason, I think I'm going to say, like, this is a book that I'm reading, period, and I'm not going to put up the cover. I'm not going to spend a lot of time talking about it, but I want to be honest with you guys to say, like, hey, I read this book. I'm not going to hide that I'm reading certain books. So if I was thinking about a book that I just had the most fun reading, that I was just so happy reading throughout the whole thing, it would be Aurora Rising, just because I thought it was so much fun. It was a lot of things that I actually don't like in a book, and yet I really liked this book and I had so much fun and I was so like happy and laughing out loud and giddy while reading this book. Question number 12, a book to film adaptation you saw this year? I haven't watched any. That's an easy answer. So I haven't watched any book to film adaptations, but I have watched a couple different book to TV adaptations, which I forgot about. My favorite of which was the adaptation for Sally Rooney's Normal People. It was one of my favorite books from 2020, and they did such an amazing job with the show. They stayed true to the book for the most part, and in a really genuine way, while still making it work for TV in that sort of episodic quality. They kept the same tone and vibe and atmosphere of the book all throughout the show, and it was so, so good. 13. Question number 13 is the favorite video that you've made so far on the channel. I have really just been using this almost as like a book journal, book diary so far. I haven't really gone out of my way to make like unique content. It's mostly been, this is what I'm reading, this is what I plan to read, this is what I've read. I plan to change that and get a little bit more outside of my comfort zone moving forward. But I think the video that I had the most fun making was, and that I put so much effort into editing, was when my friend Taylor came over and we did a review, a non-spoiler review and a spoilery chat for A Court of Silver Flames. This was just so much fun making this video together, like sitting down and filming. We spent hours on it because I was having some technical difficulties, and we also filmed so much content. Like we had such a huge long conversation about it. And then it took so much work editing because it's extremely difficult to edit when there are two people and there's like a conversation, because we would cut each other off sometimes, or it was just harder than to figure out how to prioritize and how to take like 45 minutes and make that 19. These are actually not very successful videos. They don't have a ton of views and they don't have many comments, but it was just so much fun making them that it's definitely, I think, the favorite so far. So if you want to hear our like very real discussion with my friend Taylor about A Court of Silver Flames, please check out those videos. I thought they were a lot of fun, and it makes me feel so much more grateful to like have Taylor as like such a great friend, and to have spontaneously met Taylor in Denmark of all places. And yeah, just it gives me all the warm fuzzies. Question number 14 is the most beautiful book that you've bought so far this year, and now I'm regretting I forgot to get it. So just give me a second. You guys know I don't really buy a lot of books, so default here is Namesake by Adrienne Young, although I do think that it is extremely beautiful. I didn't grab Fable, the other one. I'll maybe throw up a photo. I think this is such a cool concept for like concept art for a duology, and I think that the execution was so well done. If anything, I wish that they had have kept the same color tone for both of the books. And then finally, the last question is, what books do you need to read by the end of the year? I don't need to read any books. I am pretty loose and low on like the pressure and expectations of myself reading. But I just read Ship of Magic by Robin Hobb, and now I feel like I need to finish this series like so soon. So I'm gonna read at least the Live Ship Traders, the next two books. I have been sort of leaning towards going back and also doing a reread of the Farseer trilogy, which I read a really long time ago, and it was a very emotional and difficult process for me. I'm almost hesitant because I was in a really, really bad place emotionally by the time that I finished those books with Fitz. So I worry a little bit about that, but I am in a better mental health place overall than I was when I read that. So I think that I can do it, and I do want to read the whole Elderlings Realm books all like in the right order this time, but definitely on Live Ship Traders, maybe Farseer. And I really want to read Malice, or start the Faithful and the Fallen series by John Gwynne. I had Malice on hold at the library and like kept postponing it because at the time that it became available, I had just read a bunch of prophecy books and I was like, just not in the mood for another prophecy book. There's just a ton of people on BookTube that have read that whole series recently, and they're all talking about how amazing the ending was, and now I just feel suckered into it. I've had this book on hold for so long, off and on, the last 6 months. I'm ready, I'm gonna get to it. Anyway, that is it for the mid-year book freakout tag. I have listed the questions as I did them down below. If you do this tag as well, or if you've done this tag as well, let me know down below. I would love to check out and see what your responses were, or if there is a question here that you really want to answer, let me know. I'd be really interested to hear how your year so far has been going. I cannot believe that we're halfway through this year. Does time move faster or slower as you age? I don't know. It feels fast. Anyway, that is it for me today, everyone. Have a lovely rest of your day, and I'll see you next time. Bye.